The call came on a Tuesday. I was in the middle of a presentation when my phone buzzed in my pocket. 3 times, then silence, then 3 more times. Mom always called like that when she wanted something, urgent, persistent, like a wasp that wouldn't leave you alone. I ignored it and continued explaining quarterly projections to my team. Whatever crisis she was manufacturing could wait another hour. When I finally stepped out of the conference room, I had 6 missed calls and a voicemail that started with a drawn-out sigh. Classic Patricia. Even her breathing was designed to make, "You feel guilty. Robin, sweetheart, it's Mom. Call me back as soon as you get this. It's important. Love you." No explanation, no details, just the hook to reel me in. I leaned against the wall of the hallway, debating whether to call back immediately or wait until after work. The last time something was important, she needed me to loan her $300 for a car repair that mysteriously turned into a new designer purse she flaunted on Facebook the following week. I'd been doing so well keeping her at arm's length. 3 months of minimal contact, of not jumping every time she snapped her fingers. Dr. Winters would be proud of my boundaries, but something about those 6 calls made my stomach knot with familiar anxiety. What if it was actually important? This time, I ducked into an empty meeting room and called her back. "Robin! Thank God, I've been trying to reach you all morning." Her voice had that breathless quality she used when she wanted to convey urgency. "I was in a meeting, Mom. What's going on?" "Well, as you know, Alan and I are celebrating our 20th anniversary next month." Alan, my stepfather of 19 years and 8 months. The man who moved into our house barely 2 months after Dad died, bringing his sullen teenage daughter Tiffany along. The man who looked at me with thinly veiled annoyance whenever I mentioned my father or cried on the anniversary of his death. "Yes, I remember," I said, though I'd been trying not to. 20 years since Dad had been erased, replaced so quickly it was as if he'd never existed at all. "We're planning a vow renewal ceremony. Something elegant but intimate, at the Lakeside Gardens. Venue? You know the one where Congressman Miller's daughter got married last spring?" Her voice lifted with excitement. "It's going to be absolutely perfect." I could hear where this was going. The Lakeside Gardens was one of the most expensive venues in the city. My mother had expensive taste and limited means to satisfy it, a combination that usually ended with her hand extended toward me. "That sounds lovely," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I'm sure it will be beautiful." "The thing is, sweetie," her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper, "we put down the deposit, but the final payment is due next week, and we're a little short." And there it was. "How short is a little?" I asked, though I already knew it would be substantial. "Just $8,000. She said it like she was asking for bus fare. "We would pay you back, of course. It's just that Alan's bonus didn't come through yet, and Tiffany's still struggling with her startup business." $8,000 for an anniversary party celebrating a marriage that had begun while I was still wearing black to school and crying myself to sleep each night? "That's a lot of money, Mom." I know. But you're doing so well with your promotion. And it would mean so much to us, to me." Her voice softened. "You know your father would have wanted me to be happy. The low blow, using Dad to manipulate me, a tactic she'd perfected over the years. The irony was that Dad would have hated how quickly she'd replaced him, how she'd allowed Alan to pack away Dad's books and trophies, to paint over the height marks on the kitchen doorframe that had tracked my growth since I was 4. I should have said no. Should have told her that my promotion came with new responsibilities, not just a bigger paycheck, that I was saving for my own future, that every time I gave her money, it disappeared into a black hole of entitlement and ingratitude. But 20 years of conditioning doesn't break easily. I heard myself say, "Let me see what I can do," and hated the relief in her voice when she thanked me. After we hung up, I sat in that empty meeting room for 10 more minutes, staring at my reflection in the darkened window. At 34, I was successful, respected, independent, except when it came to my mother. With her, I was still the 14-year-old girl desperate for approval, for any scrap of the love she'd once given freely before Dad died, and she decided grief was too inconvenient to accommodate. I transferred the money that night, $8,000 from my savings account, the amount I'd been setting aside for a down payment on a condo. Mom texted a string of heart emojis and promised I'd be the guest of honor at the ceremony. For the next 3 weeks, she called, almost daily with updates about flower arrangements and catering menus. She even asked my opinion about her dress, sending photos of 3 nearly identical cream-colored gowns that I dutifully commented on. I found myself getting pulled into her excitement despite my reservations. Maybe this was a turning point in our relationship. Maybe she was finally seeing me as someone valuable beyond my bank account. I bought a new dress for the occasion, midnight blue, elegant, but not flashy. I made an appointment to get my hair done. I even wrapped a gift, a custom photo album I'd spent hours creating, filled with pictures of Mom and Alan throughout their years together. I'd had to dig through old Facebook posts and email attachments to find most of them, as Mom rarely included me in family photos after Alan and Tiffany arrived. The ceremony was scheduled for a Saturday evening. On Friday morning, I received a text from Mom asking if we could meet for coffee. "Need to discuss a few last-minute details," she wrote. We met at a cafe near her house. She was already there when I arrived, dressed immaculately as always, her blonde hair freshly highlighted. She stood to give me an air kiss, careful not to smudge her makeup against my cheek. "You look lovely, darling," she said, resuming her seat. "That color really brings out your eyes. You've always had your father's eyes." She said it casually, as if she mentioned Dad all the time, as if she hadn't flinched whenever I brought him up throughout my teenage years. "Thanks, Mom. Is everything ready for tomorrow?" "Almost." She stirred her latte, not meeting my eyes. "There's been a small change of plans." My stomach dropped. With Mom, small changes were rarely small. The guest list had to be trimmed a bit. The venue coordinator said we were over capacity. She took a sip of her drink, still not looking at me. Some difficult decisions had to be made. I stared at her, realization dawning slowly. "Are you uninviting me?" She finally met my gaze, her eyes wide with manufactured innocence. "Not uninviting, sweetheart. Just postponing your involvement. We're planning a larger reception in a few months for the extended circle. You'll definitely be included in that." Blood rushed to my face. "I paid for this, Mom. I gave you $8,000. And we're so grateful." She reached across the table to pat my hand. "You've always been so generous. But you understand about capacity issues, don't you? And Alan's sister is flying in from Phoenix with her husband. We couldn't possibly exclude family." "I am family," I said, my voice a whisper. Her smile tightened. "Of course you are, in a broader sense. But Tiffany is walking her father down the aisle, and with all of Alan's relatives coming." She trailed off, as if the rest was too obvious to state. I pulled my hand away from hers. "You cashed my check. We'll pay you back, Robin. I told you that." Her tone sharpened. "I thought you'd be more understanding. This day is about Alan and me, not about you." "It never is about me, is it?" The words escaped before I could stop. Them, carrying 20 years of hurt. Something flashed in her eyes, annoyance, maybe even contempt. "You've always been so dramatic, just like your father. Don't bring Dad into this." "Why not?" "You've been holding his memory over my head for 2 decades, as if I wasn't allowed to move on, to be happy again." "You moved on after 8 weeks, I said, the old pain breaking through. His side of the closet wasn't even cold before Alan's. Clothes were hanging there. I was a young widow with a teenage daughter to support," she snapped. "Should I have spent years alone, martyring myself to your father's memory? You could have given me time to grieve. You could have let me keep his things instead of selling them at a garage sale while I was at school." She waved a dismissive hand. "Water under the bridge. This isn't about ancient history. No, It's about you taking my money and then shutting me out. Again. Her face hardened into the expression I'd seen countless times growing up. Whenever I'd asked for help with homework, when she was watching her shows, whenever I'd mentioned missing Dad, whenever I'd failed to be the perfect, compliant daughter, she wanted. You know what, Robin? This is exactly why you weren't included. Everything always has to be about your feelings, your needs. This weekend is supposed to be a joyful celebration, not another opportunity for you to dredge up childhood grievances. Childhood grievances? I repeated, incredulous. You took $8,000 from me under false pretenses. That happened yesterday, not in my childhood. You offered to help, she countered. If there were strings attached, you should have said so. The string was that I would be invited to the event I paid for. A few people at nearby tables glanced our way. Mom's face flushed with embarrassment. Keep your voice down, she hissed. You're making a scene. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. I want my money back. Don't be ridiculous. It's already spent. The venue, the catering, the flowers, it's all paid for. Then cancel it. She laughed, a short, cruel sound. We're not canceling our anniversary celebration because you're having a tantrum. I grabbed my purse, my hands shaking. I'm done, Mom. I'm done being your ATM. I'm done being good enough to finance your life, but not good enough to be part of it, Robin. You're overreacting. Sit down. No. I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see the mother I'd been desperate to please. I saw a selfish, manipulative woman who had used my love against me for as long as I could remember. If I'm not invited to the celebration, then there won't be a celebration. I walked out, ignoring her calls behind me. In my car, hands still trembling, I pulled out my phone and called the Lakeside Gardens venue. When the coordinator answered, I explained that I was Patricia Williams' daughter and that unfortunately, the event would need to be canceled. The client would need to make that request personally, the coordinator explained politely. I understand, I said. But I'm the one who made the payment, and I'm withdrawing my authorization for the use of my funds. I have the receipt and credit card statements to prove it. There was a pause. Let me transfer you to our manager. 20 minutes and several transfers later, I had spoken to the venue's financial controller. I explained the situation, that I had been led to believe I was financing a family event I would be attending, only to be explicitly disinvited. That the funds had been obtained under false pretenses. That I would be disputing the charge with my credit card company and was prepared to pursue the matter legally if necessary. Whether it was the determination in my voice or the threat of a messy legal dispute, the controller eventually agreed to cancel the event and initiate a refund process. There would be a cancellation fee, he warned me. Fine, I said. Better than losing all $8,000. My phone began ringing before I even pulled out of the parking lot. Mom, then Alan, then Mom again. I silenced it and drove home, a strange calm settling over me. For the first time in 20 years, I had stood up to her. I had refused to be used. The calls continued all afternoon and into the evening. Voicemails filled my inbox, evolving from scolding, "Call me immediately, Robin. This childish behavior is unacceptable," to threatening, "If you don't fix this right now, don't ever expect to be welcome in this family again," to panicked, "Please, Robin, everything is falling apart. We can work this out," to tearful, "How could you do this to me? After everything I've done for you?" I listened to each one, but I didn't call back. Instead, I opened a bottle of wine, ordered takeout, and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. Each time my phone buzzed, I felt a twinge of the old conditioning, the urge to apologize, to make things right, to earn back her approval. But underneath that was something new and fragile, the sense that I didn't need her approval anymore. At 9:47 p.m., Tiffany called. We hadn't spoken directly in years, communicating only through stilted small talk at obligatory family gatherings. "What the hell is wrong with you?" she demanded when I answered. "Mom and Dad are devastated. The venue called and said everything's been canceled. They're losing their deposit because of you." Hello to you too, Tiffany, I said calmly. And they're not losing the deposit because of me. They're losing it because they took my money and then uninvited me from the event. They didn't uninvite you, she scoffed. They just said you couldn't come to the ceremony. You were still invited to the dinner after. That was news to me. That's not what Mom said this morning. Well, whatever she said, you've ruined everything. They've been planning this for months. If it was so important, maybe they should have included the person who paid for it. God, you're so selfish, Tiffany spat. It's their anniversary. It's not about you. You're right. It's not about me. It never has been. But this time, the money is mine, and I get to decide how it's spent. You know what? This is why nobody wants you around. You always make everything difficult. Mom was right. You were just useful for the money. That's all you've ever been good for. The words hit like a slap, but in their cruelty was also clarity. This was what they really thought of me. This was my place in their family. Thanks for being honest, Tiffany, I said quietly. Tell Mom and Alan I won't be bothering any of you again. I hung up and blocked all 3 of their numbers. Then I went to bed and, surprisingly, slept better than I had in years. The next day, what would have been the ceremony, my doorbell rang around noon. I opened it to find my mother standing there, her eyes red-rimmed, her normally perfect makeup slightly smudged. How could you do this to me? She asked without preamble. To us? I looked at her for a long moment. How could you do what you did to me? It wasn't personal, Robin. We had space constraints. I was going to make it up to you. By letting me come to dinner after I'd paid for everything, after Tiffany got to walk Alan down the aisle while I wasn't even allowed in the building? She sighed heavily. You're blowing this out of proportion. No, for once I'm seeing things exactly as they are. I leaned against the doorframe, no longer interested in inviting her in. You know what I realized last night? I've spent 20 years trying to buy your love. Tuition for Tiffany's private college when you and Alan couldn't afford it. The down payment for your house. Car repairs, medical bills, vacations. I've funded it all, thinking if I just gave enough, you'd finally see me. That's not fair. We've always appreciated your help. Appreciated it, sure. But did you ever love me for more than what I could give you? Her face flushed. How dare you question my love? I'm your mother. Yes, you are. Which makes it even sadder that I have to ask. She tried another tack, her voice softening. Robin, sweetheart, I know things haven't always been perfect between us, but we're family. We're all we've got. That's not true, I said, realizing it myself as the words came out. I have friends who have shown me more consideration than you ever have. I have colleagues who respect me. I have a life full of people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. So you're choosing strangers over your own mother? Over your family? I'm choosing myself, Mom. For the first time. She stared at me, her expression moving from disbelief to anger. You'll regret this. When you're alone and have no one, you'll regret turning your back on family. I'm not alone, I said simply. I'm just not with people who hurt me anymore. I closed the door gently but firmly, then stood with my back against it, listening to her footsteps retreat down the hallway. I expected to feel grief or guilt or even regret. Instead, I felt light, as if I'd put down a burden I'd been carrying for 20 years. That was 2 years ago. Mom tried to contact me several times in the following months, first with angry messages delivered through mutual acquaintances, then with tearful voicemails from new phone numbers, and finally with a Christmas card containing a carefully worded non-apology. I'm sorry if you felt hurt by what happened. I didn't respond to any of them. It wasn't easy, cutting ties with my only blood relative. There were nights I questioned my decision, days when some small achievement or setback made me automatically reach for my phone to call her. Old habits, die hard, and the need for maternal approval is perhaps the oldest habit of all. But I stuck to my boundaries. I continued seeing Dr. Winters, who helped me recognize that what I'd been calling love was actually a trauma bond, a desperate attachment formed in the aftermath of my father's death, reinforced by years of emotional manipulation. With time and distance, other memories began to surface. How Mom had started dating Alan while Dad was still in the hospital, not after he died as she'd always claimed. How she'd discouraged me from applying to out-of-state colleges, sabotaging my interviews with last-minute emergencies that required my immediate attention. How she'd always found ways to diminish my achievements while exaggerating Tiffany's modest accomplishments. I learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who celebrates your victories and helps you through your defeats without keeping score. I found family in unexpected places, in my friend Mia, who brought soup when I had the flu, in my colleague Jordan, who defended my ideas in meetings even when I wasn't there, in my neighbor Mrs. Castillo, who taught me to make her grandmother's empanadas and listen to my stories about Dad. I built a life that didn't revolve around earning love. I adopted a rescue dog named Bo, who thinks I hung the moon simply because I feed him and scratch behind his ears. I volunteered at a grief support group for teenagers, using my own experience to help others navigate loss. I started dating again, not desperately seeking validation, but genuinely open to connection. Last month, I finally bought that condo I'd been saving for. As I unpacked boxes in my new home, I came across the photo album I'd made for Mom and Alan's anniversary, the one they never received. I flipped through it idly, studying the photos I'd so carefully arranged. In almost every image, Mom and Alan were centered, smiling broadly, while I hovered at the edges, half cropped out of the frame. How had I not seen it before? I had been an afterthought in my own family for 20 years. I closed the album and placed it in a donation box. Then I hung a different picture on my living room wall, one of Dad and me at the beach when I was 10, both of us laughing as waves crashed around our knees. Next to it, I hung newer photos, Bo and me hiking in the mountains, my 36th birthday celebration with friends, the ribbon cutting at the community center where I volunteer. These are the moments that matter now. These are the people who see me, really see me, and love me anyway. Yesterday, I received a text from an unknown number. "It's Mom. Alan left me. I need help with the mortgage. Please call." I didn't respond, didn't feel the old pull of obligation. Instead, I took Bo for a long walk in the spring sunshine, joined friends for dinner, and came home to the quiet sanctuary I've created for myself. This morning, I woke up feeling something that has become increasingly familiar, but is still remarkable after so many years of emotional chaos. Peace. Not the temporary calm between storms that characterized my relationship with Mom, but a steady, abiding tranquility that comes from knowing my worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. The 14-year-old girl who lost her father and then, in many ways, her mother too, will always be part of me. I honor her pain and her desperate attempt to hold on to the only family she had left. But I'm no longer defined by that loss or by the years of manipulation that followed. I'm defined by the life I'm building now, by the boundaries I maintain, by the love I give freely without expectation of return. I'm defined by my compassion, yes, even for Mom, whose own brokenness led her to break me too, and by my determination to end the cycle of emotional abuse. Sometimes the most empowering word in the English language is no. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who cannot love you the way you deserve to be loved. And sometimes the family you build from scratch is stronger than the one you were born into. I don't know if Mom will try to contact me again. I don't know if there will ever come a day when I feel ready to let her back into my life, even at a distance. What I do know is that I no longer measure my worth by her approval or disapproval. I no longer feel the need to buy a place in my own family. That alone feels like victory enough.